So today we have Elisha Cummings. Welcome, Elisha.
Thank you.
So I'm going to give our audience a brief background on you. So you were born and raised in Oklahoma, and you are still there today.
Yes.
You have 4 kids ranging in ages between 5 and 13 years old, which when
Yes.
I found that out, I was like, how does she do it? But we'll get into that.
Oh,
We'll get into all that good stuff. You've worked in the medical field for 14 years, and most recently, you made the shift to human resources, but still in healthcare, and you love your
yes,
job,
I do.
which is such a great thing. And we met in the SD Facebook group last year, and since that time, we've developed a supportive relationship basically through Facebook Messenger, but
Yes.
it's nice to build relationships with people that are walking through similar struggles.
Yes. Yes, it is. Yes.
So welcome to SD
Thank you.
Conversations. So I know you had your first kind of symptoms of SD in 2010. Take us back. What happened in 2010?
Well, I think I misspoke a little. It was actually, I first noticed um, kind of like a hoarse sounding voice, but it was kind of breaking up a little too. When I was pregnant with my daughter, so 2007, and um, I was very, very sick with her. So I was like, maybe it's just all the stomach acid from being so sick. I went to a doctor, he did a scope, and he's like, yeah, your vocal cords are very irritated. So I'm going to chalk that up as stomach acid. Okay. So that's where it started.
And that was 2007. And how long did it take for you to get a formal diagnosis?
I got my formal diagnosis last year, like a year ago next week, actually.
Wait,
Yeah.
so we're talking 20. So from 2007 to
Mm.
2020,
Yes.
you did not know what was going on.
No, I knew, like, I did a lot of research and I knew deep down that I had spasmodic dysphonia, but I didn't have a diagnosis. So what I just went with was, yeah, I have damage to my vocal cords. I was really sick when I was pregnant, blah, blah, blah. And that's what I always told people. And I know it's really hard to tell right now, but when I don't have Botox, I just sound like I could burst into tears, or I'm so incredibly nervous, even when I'm not. So um, that's what I've said over all the years, like, oh, just got some vocal cord damage.
And isn't that so frustrating, especially as a woman in the workplace, that we've had to work so hard to get it to our positions that we've attained, to then find ourselves with this voice that is unreliable, sounds like we're going to burst into tears at any moment,
Yes,
that we're nervous, and it has nothing to do with that.
yes, beyond frustrating, yes.
And we're going to talk about some of those frustrating moments because you have 2 stories that just kind of blew me away. It's just the insensitivities of some people when it comes to this. Okay, so let's go back to the timeline. So from
Okay.
2007 to last year, you're in this kind of roller coaster. In your heart of hearts, you knew it was SD, didn't get a formal diagnosis. So what happened a year ago? Like what shifted so that you could get what you were looking for?
COVID, COVID happened. So I was laid off from my position for a corporate giant, if you will. Um, and so I'd been with them 5 years, and my position was made redundant. And so and the first thing I did was, okay, I have this gift of time, basically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go start a checkbox of all the things I want to fix about myself. and I'm going to use this downtime to do it. And the first thing I started with was my vocal cords. So I made an appointment with an ENT here in Tulsa. I called several because I had joined the Facebook group, and I thought, okay, well, everyone is saying find someone who specializes in this so they really know what to listen for. So I did. I called around, found someone who was familiar with it, and made an appointment. And when I went in, he listened to me. He had not even scoped me yet. And he said, "You have spasmodic dysphonia." And so he did the scope, and then he said, "Yes, that's what you have." And I just cried. I just cried because I'm like, I knew it. But when someone says those words to you, and now you're like, okay, this sucks because I know it's a lifelong condition. I know it's not fixable. Um, but that's okay because now I know what to go do. So I started, there's only one ENT in Tulsa that does Botox. So I made an appointment with him. He didn't have any availability for a couple months, but man, that first time of just going in there. So in order for my insurance to cover Botox, I had to try speech therapy first, right? So I crossed those T's, and it didn't help at all, obviously. We worked on really pushing my voice, doing like vowel exercises, because my phone number is like the hardest thing in the world to say. So the last 4 digits of my number are 1638. When I don't have Botox, I cannot get the 8 out. So we did a lot of exercises for that. Didn't help, but that's what I had to do for insurance to approve Botox.
I think it's amazing that, the more I talk to people, not just people with SD, but there are a lot of silver linings around COVID and what you shared,
Yes.
that losing your job, then kind of focusing on your health and your wellness and trying to be the best version of yourself had you
Yes.
focus on that. And I think that's amazing. To fast forward where we sit today, I see a beautiful woman sitting in front of me with this
Oh,
cool
thank
leopard
you.
sweater on and this really cool chair and like office setup. I think it's amazing. I really do. Just to reflect that back to you, because, a lot of times we focus on the negatives that are happening with coronavirus, and there's certainly many, 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 many. And there's some good. Anytime there's a period of darkness, there's always a period of light. Wouldn't you think?
I totally agree. And that's the only, if you can focus on that and hang on to that, that's the only thing that's going to get you through really rough times, like a layoff. If COVID hadn't have happened, I would have probably years down the road, sought treatment. There's a few other things I worked on about myself. I would not have um, made the jump into human resources, which is ultimately my passion, helping others see the best in themselves, but in a professional setting. So literally everything around me would not have happened had it not been for COVID. So I do count those blessings every day.
And how does it feel to be sitting in your office right now, having recently had Botox and just feeling really good? I imagine that feels really good. What does it feel like right now?
Well, hard to see in the camera, but this little guy,
Yeah.
it's not as intimidating when you have Botox, because part of my job, I'm on the phone a lot. I help with the phones when I'm not, spending time with our employees. And that's just, that little pause that before you pick up the phone and you're like, is my voice going to hold up? Are they going to think they are talking to someone who's on the verge of a nervous breakdown? Or is it going to be can they hear me? That's,
Mm.
you have that thought every time before you pick up a phone. So right now, it's like I'm on vacation because I don't have to have those thoughts. I can just, like, I can just pick up the phone and speak. Last week was really rough. This is my, it's been 2 weeks today since I had my last injection. So last week it was so hard to talk. And I was trying to teach classes all day. And, you have to start everything off with, I'm not sick. I have blah, blah, blah. And right now my voice is very um, breathy and weak, but I
Mm.
promise it'll get better. Bear with me. And in the beginning, it's totally fine. But after about an hour of talking, I mean, it's like, it's just everything. It's so much work to just get words out. So last week was rough, but they could still understand me, even though it was quieter. Um, they could still understand me. And I have learned that people are a um, lot kinder and a lot more forgiving when it's something you can't help, um, versus like if you get that awkwardness out from the get-go, like, here's what's going on, I'm not sick, I'm not nervous, I'm not on the verge of tears. um, they give you a lot more grace than just because you can see it, like you can just see it on their face. They're, from the minute you open your mouth, there you can just see that they're like, what is wrong with her, what is wrong with her voice?
Oh, yes, I know
You
that
about to,
face.
yeah, is she about to start crying? I hate that face. But
And then it shifts to compassion, like, oh,
yes.
okay, she's dealing with something. And I think the reason why people can move towards that is because each and every one of us is struggling with something. We are all, every single person, even the person that looks the most put together, like Giselle Bundchen, who's married to Tom Brady, and they probably have everything that a human being could imagine. She is struggling with something. I guarantee it.
Right.
We
Right.
all have that in common, but because we don't have it front and center in our minds, when we hear that someone else is being vulnerable about their struggle, it makes us feel like, oh wow, like I get this person because I have something going on too. The thing about SD, unfortunately, as we all know, is we can't hide it. We can't hide the struggle. The struggle is right out front and center,
Right.
which in my experience, and I wonder if this is the same for you, when I'm in periods of high stress, my voice goes to complete crap. Is that you too?
It is. It is. And, everyone's version of stress is different. When you have SD, something as simple as trying to speak to someone and then it could be, really big stressors like, I'm sorry, I just got a message that my internet, can you still see me?
Yeah, I can. You're good. You're
Okay,
great.
good. Um, it doesn't matter how big or how little the stressor is. Now, when you're really, really upset, like something really bad has happened, yeah, forget about it. Don't even try to talk because nothing's going to come out. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you shared with me previously that you've had some interesting work experiences before you started to get Botox. And, while
Yeah.
there's lots of compassionate people out there, there's certainly the people that are quite insensitive and might not be able to really connect with what you were struggling with. I'm curious if you'll share any of those experiences.
So, when I started in the corporate world, I was surrounded by men. It was just men, and like I had one female that I got really close to, but it was just me and her against a ton of men, right? And I had no idea I was walking into a lion's den because their compassion level was probably a 0. And so it wasn't very bad when I first started, but I had to do public speaking every Tuesday morning in front of our entire manufacturing floor, which was about 85 people every Tuesday morning. And I'm not talking like 9 a.m., I mean 7 a.m. The minute I would walk in the door every Tuesday morning, I had to get up in front of everyone and do public speaking. And I could just see the look on everyone's faces, like in the audience. They're like, what is wrong with her? Because I'm just like, I'm trying to have like a professional conversation and a professional meeting, and I sound the way I sound.
Wow.
I never took the time to explain to them what was going on because I didn't have a diagnosis at that time. All I had was, damaged vocal cords, but I never took that time to explain to them that I had at least that much. And I really regret that because if there's anything I've learned, especially from the support group, it's get it out of the way. Get the elephant out of the room. Tell them from the get-go, here's what I have going on. And it calms your nerves. It just totally changes the tone in the room. But I never did that. So
Wow.
however many Tuesdays is in 5 years.
How did I mean, let's just pause. I can't even, I don't know how you did it. And I do not know. Did you have anxiety going to sleep at night on Monday nights, knowing you had to do
every
that?
Monday night, every Monday night for 5 years. Um, because it was literally walk in the door, drop my keys, and get up and speak in front of everyone. Um, I used to tell my friend how much I hated them. And what I would do is I would always look for her in the audience because she kind of helped calm me, and I knew she understood and she loved me for how I was and how I sounded. So I would always try to find her in the room, and that would kind of calm my nerves and the embarrassment that I felt. But I had those conversations. I said, look, I don't really like doing this because of how my voice sounds. And my somewhat, not on paper, but my boss, I kind of had two bosses, but one of them was like, well, sorry, you got to do it. And it was like, I don't know. It never got better. But one specific situation, I had a performance review, and this was after I had been with my boss, like side by side for 3 years. And in my performance review, he said, well, you've done really great. I can't think of anything that I would need you to improve on. The only thing I would suggest is for you to take a Toastmasters class because you're so nervous on Tuesday mornings and you can't speak very well. You don't do a very good job. So you should really look into Toastmaster classes, which if you don't know what that is, it's like local clubs around cities and states have where you like do improv comedy and improv speaking and learn how to do public speaking, basically like a non-college version of public speaking. And I said, no, sir, that's not going to help me because what's going on is it's not my nerves, it's not my preparation, it's biological, like it's physical, like I can't help it. And so even though I had that really uncomfortable conversation with him, it never changed. Like, I don't think he believed me.
So what
I
did he
don't,
say? That was very vulnerable of you to say that. What did he say in response?
um, he just kind of brushed it off and moved on, like just kind of wrapped the meeting up because I'm sure it was very uncomfortable. Um, so he just was like, oh, okay. For a long time, I didn't think he believed me. I didn't think, because I didn't have a diagnosis, I didn't have something to call it. It was just, biological. Like I didn't have a name for it. So, but I did have one coworker who was kind of a jerk. He was very insensitive. I enjoyed him, but he was very insensitive. And we were in a meeting. I'll never forget this. It was me and my friend and a bunch of males, and we were in a meeting in a conference room, and he made a little jab at me about my voice. And I don't remember the context of the conversation, but I just like stopped the meeting. And I looked at him and I was like, you do understand that I cannot help how my voice sounds, right? Like, do you understand that? And all the color drained out of his face. And he didn't apologize, but I think I got my point across that, like, let's pick out your most vulnerable insecurity and let's talk about it right now. It was
I
just
bet,
so
I bet he felt about that big.
I hope so.
You're tough, I
But
can tell. I'm getting a whole new version of you through this conversation.
you have to be, because there's no one that understands it. There's not a lot of us out there, so you have to be, or you'll, because if you let it consume you, it's just this never-ending cycle of nervousness, of unsurety. You have to. So
Well, your voice sounds amazing today.
thank you.
I know you posted that video 2 weeks ago, right after, I think it was 2 weeks ago, when you had just recently gotten
Yes,
Botox. And it's just amazing how it works, and that it
yes,
really does provide tremendous relief.
it does. It really does. But also, even when it starts to wear off, I'm not afraid anymore. And that's really helped just improve my quality of life, because I know, one, relief is coming when I make my next appointment. And two, everyone in my life who really loves me and cares about me, they're used to it and they accept it. So I'm really only doing this for me at this point. And I kind of hate that, like, especially when I'm actually getting the Botox, I'm sitting there thinking, why am I going through this? Everyone accepts me how I am. Why am I putting myself through this?
I think, first of all, there's no better person to do it for than you, right? Like, I think that's
Yeah,
amazing. Yes, they do accept you. I'm sure they all do. And I feel like Botox gives us a peace of mind that assists with the mental health piece of this,
yeah,
because confidence is just so important. And
it's true.
eliminating what I call voice fright. It's just huge. It's just huge. So I absolutely support your decision to do it. I mean, you sound
Thank you.
essentially 100%, which is
Thank
amazing.
you.
So for people that have never had Botox, walk us through your experience with it. Do you get it on just one side? Do you get it on both sides? Is your doctor experimenting with you? How is that working?
So, again, I cannot say good enough things about the Facebook support group that we're in, because I didn't even know you could do one side. But I've read some suggestions about that, and I'm like, I'm going to try that, because for some people it helps with the breathy stage. So the last time I asked him if that was an option, and he said, yes, it's an option, but I just haven't really had a lot of good luck with it. So I'm like, okay, never mind. So yes, I get both sides. We started very, very slow. I've had 4 total injections. We started, I mean, the absolute lowest dose. I got maybe a week of pretty voice, but then it was gone. So I have about 2 weeks of breathiness, and then I have about 2 months of good voice. The hardest part for me is not the actual Botox injections. It's so he does it while he's scoping me. So he injects or he sprays this numbing medicine, and I'm really amazed that with all the technology we have, we cannot invent a numbing spray that doesn't taste like what I imagine roadkill probably tastes like, because it's so awful. That's the worst part to me, is when he's doing the numbing spray, because it looks like a can of like WD-40, and he's like spraying it so far down your nose, and it's gross. And then when he does the numbing injection, everything is fine. And then out of nowhere, it's like he sticks it completely through to your throat, and then he's like spraying it, but it's making you cough. That is the worst part. After that, if you can get through that part, you're golden.
Well, and I
It's
think,
scarier in your
yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but you were saying it was scary.
no, it's scarier in your head than it really is when it's go time.
Yeah. I think from the conversations that I've had and what I've seen in our SD group, some doctors scope the patients and some don't. I think it just depends. Some will do both sides, some will do one side. So I think it's
Right.
the level that your physician feels comfortable, and also whatever the patient wants. Some patients will walk in and say, this is exactly what I want, but it doesn't sound like you're quite
Yes.
there yet.
No. I'm still the patient who's like, do what you need to do. Just help me.
And
So
he or she has clearly helped you, because you sound amazing today.
thank you. Thank you.
So one of the things I love about you is how you approach SD with a lot of humor. And it seems like that's been a way that you've kind of coped with our condition. So tell me about that. Like how, and I talked to somebody recently when I did an SD conversation, that he said having this disorder has actually shifted him from being a glass half empty kind of a person to a glass half full. So I'm interested in your experience with that.
So I feel like, so I'm 34, and I've spent a lot of time just really like, woe is me. And, why did I have to go through this and blah, blah, blah. Okay, first of all, nobody wants to be around you when you're like that. Nobody, like, that's not fun for anyone. But I've learned that through sarcasm and through humor, um, it just makes people feel more comfortable. Like, you just drain the soul out of people when you're just constantly pessimistic about it, or if you can't laugh at yourself or laugh at the situation. And all the times people have misunderstood me in a drive-through or at the doctor's office, um, if you cannot laugh through that. So actually, I just realized one of the reasons why I always try to keep humor as a big piece of my life is because when you're laid back, when you're in a good mood, and when you're laughing, your voice improves. Like I've used that technique several times. If I can like laugh when I don't have Botox, this was before I even had my diagnosis. If I can laugh through a conversation, like if it's a really good, funny conversation, my voice holds up perfect. It doesn't spasm, there's no breaks. But if I'm trying to have like a serious, depressing conversation with you, it's like a spasm every other vowel. So honestly, it was kind of a coping technique, but now it's just part of my personality because life is too short. You only get one life, and I'm not trying to suck the life out of everyone around me, especially my husband, because um, he always keeps me laughing. And I specifically look for friendships that add joy and laughter to my life, because otherwise, it's going to be a very one-sided friendship because I'm not going to really be able to talk to you because of my voice. So that's kind of some coping techniques that I've just developed. And now it's just kind of a part of my personality.
That's great. I don't know if I've ever made the connection between having fits of laughter or just kind of easier interactions and my voice improving. And
Yeah.
that makes sense. I think
Yeah.
that's great. That's great. I'll look for that.
Yeah.
So you mentioned your husband. I imagine he's been one of the biggest supporters on your ST journey. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. He has because so we all know wine, alcohol, is one method that people with spasmodic dysphonia kind of use to relax the muscle tension and whatever signals it's helping block to keep the spasms. But so when I first met him, I used wine quite a bit to kind of, when I first, I didn't want to freak him out, and it's really hard when you're first dating someone. Um, I kind of had to get that out of the way, that super awkward conversation. But I would also have a glass of wine, and that really helped my voice. But then I realized, okay, this isn't really a healthy way to kind of overcome my voice. So I think he just got used to it over time and it didn't really bother him. My kids are used to it. I've dreaded the day where my kid says, Mom, what's wrong with your voice? And it hasn't happened yet, but I've been waiting patiently for it. So he has been a huge supporter. But honestly, now that I think back on it, maybe it wasn't bad with him because he always keeps me laughing. Like I'm never in a bad mood when I'm with him. So he's been a huge supporter. And when I said, I'm going to go get Botox in my throat, he was like, really? I said, yes. And he's like, is it going to make you feel better about yourself? And I said, yes. And he said, then do it. So
I like your husband. He sounds like an amazing guy.
he is. He really is.
Wonderful. And
And
go ahead.
well, so I have like a very small, close group of friends. There's three of us, four of us total. Um, and they've been awesome because I get so used to how I sound. Like I know you do as well, but then when you're with people and they're like, they hear the difference after you've had Botox and they're like, wow, you sound amazing. And you forget that you're so used to how you sound. So it's just a night and day difference. But they have all been so incredibly loving and supporting. Um, they encourage me when my spasms start back up in my voice. They are so quick to offer encouragement. Um, and people who really know me, they don't call me anymore because I hate talking on the phone. If you respect me as a friend and as a person, then you'll respect that I prefer to communicate through text because I hate the way my voice sounds. So they've also learned don't call Elisha because she's not going to answer the phone. Same with my mom. She'll call, and I know, she loves me no matter what, but I'm still like, I won't answer when my mom calls, and I'll text her and be like, is whatever you have to say textable, or do we have to talk on the phone? So people just, the ones who really love you will adapt to how you need to go through life. So
Like, you have a lot of wisdom at 34 years of age.
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends that they just want to talk on the phone, want to talk on the phone. And even with Botox, it's sometimes very hard to be on the phone. I talked about this in a recent conversation. It's just exhausting. I feel like
Mhm.
when I've talked on the phone for a long time, I just feel like I've run a marathon. So that's an over exaggeration, but you know what I mean? Like,
No, I do. I know.
it's not pleasant. It's just not a pleasant experience. So I really love you if I've just spent 30 minutes talking on the phone. But I find doing this over Zoom not as difficult. Do you find that? Is it because I can see your face? I wonder.
It's because of who you are as a person. It's because you set the tone and the energy, and you don't make me nervous. You don't make me anxious. Yeah, when I had, um, so we had a big snowstorm here in Oklahoma 2.5 weeks ago, and I did a lot of interviews virtually. And it was before I had had my injection, and I was so nervous to talk to them and, what are they going to think about my voice? And um, if they were like really high energy and like exhausting and negative or anything like that, my voice, you could tell, because I was trying to like overcompensate. I already knew
Mhm.
there was a little bit of judgment towards how I sound. So now I've got to compensate. I've got to put their mind at ease, and then I've got to put my mind at ease. But if they were just like how you are, just so calm and loving and accepting, I sounded fine. Like I got through those interviews just fine. So it's about the person on the other end. It really is.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. That absolutely makes sense. So, what are some of your SD pet peeves? We've talked about the telephone. We know that the telephone totally sucks. What
Telephone,
else?
drive-throughs. Drive-throughs are horrific. Um, Brahms is the worst because they have this giant generator right by the drive-through sign.
Uh,
So, so like for me, I can't yell. This is as loud as I get. If I try to exert my voice any higher, it breaks so bad you can't understand me. It's bad, bad. So drive-throughs, anytime I have to tell someone my phone number, I mean, I've legit thought about changing my phone number to numbers that I can say easier. Um, I hate that. I hate COVID because everyone assumes you're sick. Um, Even though I've never heard somebody with COVID have a spasmy voice, but people just assume you're sick.
yeah.
Um, that's honestly it. I absolutely dread drive-throughs.
As you were saying that, you made me think of Shane Hartline's movie, Cookie. Have you seen it?
Yes, I haven't got to see it yet, but I'm gonna watch it this weekend.
Yeah, so there's a scene in there where she's a waitress and she's got to take the order of the customer. And he looks at her kind of like all judgy. What's wrong with you? Because she's standing above him and he's a customer sitting at the table. She's like, "Oh, I just have a cold," in an SD voice. And he said, "Well, get me another waitress because I don't want to be around you." And of course, this is all pre-COVID and all, but it's just, the crap that we go through that people think we're sick, or sometimes we feel like we have to lie. She talks about that in the movie too. There's a section where a casting agent says, "What's wrong with your voice?" And you can kind of hear what she's thinking. And she says, "What's it going to be today? Is it that I was at a concert last night and I lost my voice? Is it that I have a
Right.
cold?" And like, I'm laughing as I tell you this now, but the first time I saw that, I was with my mother and I burst into tears, like just like I don't know if you've ever had those crying moments where you don't know that the dam is about to break, and it was like, boom, because that Gosh, that has been my life for a long time, just making up crap. And my favorite SD pet peeve, this is for people who live in single family homes. So in my neighborhood here, the houses are kind of spread apart. But the thing I get most nervous about, even when my voice is as good as it is right now, is I'll have my neighbor across the street. He's the sweetest guy. He'll start screaming at me, "Hey, Elsa, what's up?" And he'll start talking to me about a fish tank or someone, whatever, and I cannot, even with my voice as good as it is right now, projection is still relatively impossible for me. Does that happen to you too?
Yes. Yes. Like, do you know how good I have gotten that doesn't? So I just use a lot of hand signals and smile, and then usually try to just leave the situation. Like if I have a neighbor across the street who's trying to talk to me, I'm just like, okay, bye, gotta go, because can't talk to you. So
I'm gonna adopt this one for my neighbor Craig across the street and my little
yeah.
boy next door to me. He's the chattiest guy. When I go outside to drop my trash off, I get anxiety. I'm like, please,
Aw,
please, Lord, may there not be any of these neighbors outside. I can admit that to you, right?
yeah.
Okay, so
Yes.
last
Okay.
question for the day.
Okay.
What would you say to the person watching this that is struggling with SD, that feels pretty hopeless? They might not be 10 plus years into their journey like you. What would you say to encourage them?
I would say the most comforting thing that I found was having the Facebook support group. So people who were going through all of the ups and downs that I was, really reach out, make those connections through Facebook and through those support groups. Um, but honestly, do it. Try Botox. I know there's surgery at UCLA or Japan, but if that's not feasible, try Botox. Keep trying. The first 2 times are not really as good as it can be. So keep trying and find you a circle of people who love you unconditionally, because those that do will give you that energy and that drive to just keep being a better version of yourself. If you're surrounded by people who are judging you and just make you feel uncomfortable with how you sound, drop them, get rid of them. That's been the biggest help for me. And if they ever invent cloning, I will gladly clone my husband and my friends and like raffle them off, because honestly, you've got to have a support system. It just helps so much.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Elisha, for your wisdom, your
Oh,
kindness, and for your energy today. I feel you also very calm, and I like being in your presence. So I've really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much.
thank you so much, Elsa. I really, really, really hope that somebody watches this who just needed a little pep talk, that they're not alone, and that there are really great people out there who will support them and encourage them.
I wish the
Because
same.
I think you are definitely one of them.
Thank you.